question mark, question mark. And that's where I came in.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the craziest and most widespread conspiracy theories related to true crime.
One day, men will look back and say, I gave birth to the 20th century.
Number 10. The government killed John Lennon.
This evening, John Lennon arrived at the emergency room at the Roosevelt Hospital. He was dead at the time of his arrival.
On the night of December 8, 1980, John Lennon was shot and murdered by Mark David Chapman. To this day, his motive remains murky, leading some to question the official story. It's also true that both the CIA and the FBI surveilled Lennon and even sought to deport him to silence his influence.
And he looked at me, as I mentioned earlier, he said, "Is that all? Do you want anything else?" And I felt then and now that he knew something subconsciously, that he was looking into the eyes of the person that was going to kill him.
One conspiracy theory posits that they went even further and either hired Chapman as a hitman or brainwashed him into becoming an assassin, Manchurian Candidate style. However, most historians and experts dismiss the theory, arguing that Chapman was simply a deranged fan who grew resentful of Lennon's lifestyle and public image.
In recent years, Chapman has expressed some remorse for killing Lennon, but Lennon's widow, Yoko Ono, has reportedly submitted a number of letters asking the board to deny parole. Chapman has now been denied 12 times. He will again be eligible to seek parole in 2 years.
Number 9. The smiley face theory.
They are hundreds of young men from all across the country, their deaths labeled as accidental drownings. Now, these retired detectives say it's murder.
Sometimes the line between conspiracy theory and genuine theory is a little blurred. Such is the case with the smiley face theory. Some professionals believe that a network of killers is responsible for the drowning deaths of dozens of college-aged men across the United States since the 1990s. Found near most of the bodies was smiley face graffiti, suggesting that the symbol is some type of calling card for the criminal organization.
You're talking about almost 300 young men across the country that have been drugged, abducted, held for a period of time, murdered on land, and deposited in the bodies of water to make it look like a drowning.
The major proponents of the theory are New York detectives Kevin Gannon and Anthony Duarte and criminal justice professor Lee Gilbertson. It's an interesting theory, but it is often dismissed owing to a lack of evidence, the frequency of drowning deaths, and the proliferation of smiley face graffiti.
The graffiti is omnipresent, saying that these signs are everywhere, so of course they're going to show up more than one would expect when you're around a crime scene.
Charles Manson was brainwashed to kill the hippie movement.
Well, Bobby Beausoleil didn't do it by himself, I know that.
What's that, kill Gary Hinman?
Uh-huh.
There are some interesting things connecting Charles Manson with MK Ultra. In the late 1960s, Manson and his followers spent time around the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic, which was allegedly associated with a known MK Ultra researcher named Lewis West. The CIA's program also experimented with LSD as a means of mind control, and they were known to infiltrate drug-taking hippie movements like the Manson family.
So you and a bunch of friends like you all lived at Spawn Movie Ranch?
Yeah.
Ergo, it's very possible that at some point in time, Manson was embroiled in MK Ultra experimentation, which in turn resulted in his infamous killings. Some argue that the killings were even engineered by the CIA as a means of discrediting the anti-government counterculture movement. However, the evidence is merely circumstantial, and there is no smoking gun to support the theory.
Now we come to the question that has been asked since these murders occurred. Why?
Number 7. JonBenet Ramsey was killed by her brother.
Since the murder of child beauty queen JonBenet Ramsey more than 20 years ago, investigators and journalists have been scouring for clues to the unsolved mystery. But that search may prove to be a costly one for CBS, whose recent docuseries re-examining the case evidence is now the subject of a gargantuan lawsuit.
People look for scapegoats in times of uncertainty. JonBenet Ramsey was murdered in her Colorado home on Christmas night 1996, her body being found the next morning. It was obvious that she had been murdered, but the perp has never been identified. Enter Burke Ramsey, JonBenet's older brother. Some theorists speculate that Burke accidentally killed JonBenet during a routine sibling conflict, likely hitting her over the head with a blunt object.
CBS has taken a young man and they have falsely branded Burke as a child killer since age 9, and he will live with the impact of that accusation by CBS for the rest of his natural life.
Their parents, not wanting to lose their son as well, proceeded to cover up the crime. This theory remains one of the most debated aspects of the case, but there is no definitive proof that Burke was responsible, and he has been officially cleared by law enforcement.
Did you hit your sister over the head with a baseball bat or a flashlight?
Absolutely not.
Number 6. The Phantom Killer was a deranged soldier.
You've heard this one, serial killer stalking young couples on Lover's Lane, but it isn't fiction. It's the real deal, a legendary predator that people in Texarkana have always known as the Phantom Killer.
Whether you call them the Phantom of Texarkana, the Phantom Killer, or the Phantom Slayer, one thing remains consistent. They murdered 5 people throughout the greater Texarkana area in early 1946. The killings technically remain unsolved, although most officials believe that a career criminal named U.L. Swinney was responsible.
I would say that I'm 100% sure that it was Yuli Swinney that committed several of the Phantom Killer murders, and that he got away with it.
But there is another theory, or conspiracy theory. The area is home to 2 military bases, the Red River Army Depot and the Lone Star Army Ammunition Plant, both of which were active during World War II. Owing to the tactical precision of the murders and the perp's use of a standard-issue .32 caliber weapon, some believe that a soldier was responsible and that the military covered it up to prevent bad publicity.
Yul Swinney, car thief, habitual criminal, longtime con. In the end, a lot of the evidence does seem to point to him, and thus, mystery solved. Well, maybe not.
Number 5. Marilyn Monroe was silenced to avoid leaking information.
Monroe died from an overdose of sleeping pills.
Speculation surrounding Monroe's death continues to this day.
The world was left shocked on August 5, 1962, when it was announced that Marilyn Monroe was found dead at the age of 36. The result, supposedly, of an intentional overdose. But some are convinced that the Kennedy family was nefariously involved.
The rumors about John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe are, of course, legion. Robert Kennedy was another matter. That was beginning to interest me more.
Monroe was very close with President John F. Kennedy, and the two were supposedly having an affair. One theory contends that Monroe obtained classified information from Kennedy, including details about UFOs, the Bay of Pigs invasion, or nuclear warfare, and that she was silenced to protect these secrets. Some believe the Kennedys ordered a hit after she plans to expose the information, and some believe that the FBI killed her after learning she knew the secrets. Either way, the result is the same.
An unnamed informant quoted Marilyn as saying she just days earlier lunched with President Kennedy at Peter Lawford's house on the beach. They had, she said, discussed the morality of atomic testing.
Number 4. The government conducted the Oklahoma City bombing.
It's like a garbage pile. It's unbelievable. And everywhere you dig, you find somebody. Everywhere.
Whether it's 9/11 or Oklahoma City, some people are absolutely convinced that the American government has a history of blowing up public buildings. There was a prominent militia movement growing in the early 1990s, and anti-government sentiment abounded. In order to stem the growing movement, the American government blew up the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City and blamed it on a radicalized extremist.
It hurts down deep for everyone here. The curious now have come to see it for themselves, and still those who hold out hope come too, even though there is so little hope left.
In doing so, the public sentiment would shift back to the federal government and order would be restored. In truth, Timothy McVeigh conducted the bombing as an act of revenge against the U.S. government and their controversial handlings of both Ruby Ridge and Waco.
Together again to remember those lost, those who survived, and those changed forever.
Number 3. Jack the Ripper was a royal.
With all due respect, sir, I believe this was done by someone with at least a working knowledge of dissection. Either an educated man, such as a doctor,
An educated man? That's preposterous. No well-bred man would do this.
While widely debunked, the theory that Jack the Ripper was a member of the royal family has persisted for well over a century. But exactly which member remains contested. Some think it was Queen Victoria's grandson, Prince Albert Victor, who committed the murders after growing mentally unstable. And some think it was the Queen's personal physician, William Gull. The story goes that the prince had a secret child with a working-class woman of the neighborhood, and that Gull was ordered to silence all who knew the secret. Regardless of who it was, the royal family proceeded to cover it up and blamed it on a shadowy serial killer. Of course, there is no evidence whatsoever to suggest that either of these stories are true.
Laudanum is a derivative of opium. Apart from doctors and addicts, not many would recognize it. How long have you chased the dragon, Inspector?
Number 2. Kurt Cobain was murdered.
We talked to an FBI expert. He said, if you want to get away with murder, you kill a junkie.
Shortly after turning grunge mainstream and becoming a spokesman of Gen X, Kurt Cobain took his own life at the age of 27. Naturally, some believe he was murdered. This theory has been largely fueled by supposed inconsistencies in the official account. For example, Cobain had extremely high levels of heroin in his system, and some think this amount would have incapacitated him instantly, thereby making the fatal gunshot impossible.
For me, the most compelling piece of evidence that convinces me almost to a certainty that Kurt was murdered was the level of heroin in his body.
His letter also appears to have 2 different handwriting styles. The main culprit in the theory is Cobain's wife, Courtney Love, and she has faced excessive blame and ridicule ever since. However, those who believe in the theory often rely on mere speculation rather than definitive forensic proof, none of which points to a murder.
Should the case be reopened? My answer is unequivocally, unhesitatingly, yes. The case should be reopened.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into Settings and switch on your notifications. Number 1. JFK.
This is widely known as the magic bullet or the single bullet theory, but this lab claims after years of research, the same bullet hitting both men is scientifically impossible.
What is arguably the biggest true crime in history occurred on November 22, 1963, when President John F. Kennedy was shot and killed while driving through Dealey Plaza. The official story is that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone and shot the president. But there are, quite literally, countless conspiracy theories arguing against this.
And I think he felt nobody appreciated his worth. He wanted to make a name for himself. He wanted to be somebody. And he saw that this was possible.
Many people have been blamed for Kennedy's assassination, including the CIA, the Soviets, the Mafia, Fidel Castro, Lyndon B. Johnson, and yes, even the Illuminati. Perhaps the most famous theory concerns a second shooter on the grassy knoll who was responsible for the fatal shot to Kennedy's head. It doesn't matter which one you believe. The point is, almost no one actually thinks it was Oswald.
I never realized Kennedy was so dangerous to the establishment. Is that why?
Well, that's a real question, isn't it?
Do you personally believe in any of these theories? Let us know in the comments below.
Why? The how and the who is just scenery for the public.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.